This is The Real Gig with Bret Alexander.
Episode 21, Paul Smith returns. This time it's personal. It is. It's like kind of like, it's like a monthly review. It's like you get your performance review. We recap, or like the NFL highlights that, where they recap what happened. And you come in and give color commentary.
But also like in a scoring manner, in some sort of scoring.
Right. Oh yeah.
manner.
Russian judge.
How did you do?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And where are you at?
But I don't know if you checked them out. I had a couple cool podcasts with Jeremy Hummel.
I admit.
Didn't watch them. Didn't see it.
Now this is on the internet.
Now this is on the internet and everybody knows.
I did not. I did not watch.
No,
Jared.
well, and Jared was awesome, and it brought up a lot of good points. We were talking about. Well, I'll get to what our topic is, but like we were kind of talking about the Breaking Benjamin thing and how that was kind of like the last gasp of big, huge record deal. Music videos. Bands selling lots of CDs and physical product and all that kind of stuff, and they kind of were in that little window of just before that went away. And at one point he was talking about Napster, and he said they went and played Kansas City or somewhere, and all these people knew their music, and he knew they weren't getting spun there, and they weren't selling records that much at that point, but everybody knew the music. And he's talking to people, and they're all like checking it out on Napster. And
wow.
You know what I mean? And it was like it was brand
new.
This
underground thing actually was working.
It was happening. It was. There were actual fans and actual people out at the shows.
Yeah.
It was just the beginning of.
Yeah. What a weird time. What a weird time. Nobody was actually thinking about.
Stuff that that's 20 years later. That people take for granted. Anyway, I was kind of thinking. I was thinking today. We've had this conversation a few times, and I just want to maybe talk a little bit about, on this podcast, I'm like 20 episodes in or so. And most of the time I have people on that I know. I've had you on quite a few times, and people within maybe 20 years of our age, certainly adults, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about maybe where it's all going, where we think. And obviously we should have somebody 22 on here that'll have, but we don't have anybody like that right here today. So you and I, old farts, going to sit on the edge of the bank watching the guy building the bridge and telling him what he's doing wrong.
I bet and bad.
Yeah. So, but I was thinking about it because I was thinking. Here's an example. It has nothing to do with music, but the other day was my youngest daughter, Scarlett. She's down in Philadelphia, and her car needed inspected, and she needed work done on the car. And she called me and she said, she's outside Philadelphia. She's been there for a couple of years. Obviously doesn't know a lot of people in. She
doesn't have a home garage.
Yeah. She doesn't have a home garage. She doesn't have this thing. And it was just wild to me when she said, well, I checked out this place, and it had good reviews.
Right. Yeah.
And like, to me, I'm like, that was like maybe what I really felt old. So I'm like, no, you don't. No. Your mechanic doesn't have reviews. Your mechanic he's a guy of a guy that your father and your grandfather, or you moved to the town and you moved to the town where your wife grew up. Then her dad tells you who the guy is. Then you go to the guy,
right? And
probably he doesn't even have a cell phone. He just got a landline in there, and so you got to catch him during the business hours, and he only takes cash. He doesn't have no reviews. So then in those reviews, you can't trust them, because, she had a good experience. She went to a young guy.
To this young guy.
With reviews.
Good Yelp review, and it was really delightful.
And it went great.
Yeah, and it was super fair.
Yeah, and it was fair, and it was good, and it all worked out great. And I'm like wondering, she's a couple hours from me, right? She's a couple hours from me. I'm like, okay, I'll get in my car. I'll drive down to Philadelphia. I'll give you my car. I'll drive back up to my guy 2 hours away. Put the garage in the... 2 days to avoid...
Dad is at DEFCON 1.
Yeah.
Scarlett is down there going, Oh, yeah.
This
cool.
guy can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, what's up? Yeah. Everything's great. Okay. Awesome.
With the mechanic.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. See ya. Yeah. I'll pay you when I'm leaving. All right. Cool. Bye.
Yeah. And had a great experience, and it was all good. So my point is, like, that's just like a different value system. And I was thinking today, this morning, I don't know, what were you doing today?
Oh my goodness. Actually thinking, I don't let me go down the rabbit hole. I was thinking a lot about all of these things and futurisms and the turn of what's happening and everything. So
we're going to go there.
I'm happy to be engaged with all that.
All right. So. Well, we're doing that, but just like on a concrete basis. What were you doing 2 hours ago before I walked in here? It's a much simpler question.
Can I have one aside?
All right.
This happens frequently. And I think I honestly, like, I think I'm whole because I've identified that I understand this happens quite frequently. I operate on a worlds to be built scenario, apparently. And when I answer somebody, it often has nothing to do with what they asked about.
What they asked me?
And in Bret particularly will ask me only because he wants to know, number one, and two, he is he's careful with our time. He doesn't want to go on and on about anything. He just wants to know something. I want to know something, and then I will talk about something that does not have anything to do with that answer, but that is adjacent to the answer.
Sure, it is.
A hyperbole of the answer.
It's like the
an end around of the answer. A saddle. I don't know. Look, I've identified it, and it's kind of like when you realize you actually were snoring and your spouse was not lying.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I was like really snoring, wasn't
I? Right.
This is a good break.
So you're saying that you were snoring before I came here?
I was.
I'm not kidding. No.
Did I didn't answer anything.
You say you feel like a preserved moose was a Spinal Tap quote.
Yeah. Spinal Tap 2. Second coming is.
But anyway, here was my point. My point was, and I'm going to let you do your thing that you do. But my point was, I'm thinking, well, Paul's back here probably dealing with some network or some network problem with the computers, or he's trying to deal with some glitch in an interface or something like that.
Glitch in an interface is the prologue. Is the post log of my memoir.
The epilogue.
The epilogue.
There you go.
Okay, Bret.
The glossary. Yeah.
It's the epilogue.
Yeah.
Bret, thank you. Thank you.
That's good.
You're my AI.
I am not your AI. We're getting to AI.
Okay.
All right.
But go ahead.
Okay. My point being, okay, you're back here with the, whatever, glitch in an interface, network, messing with the, whatever techie thing that you're doing, that you people do. Like, and I'm negotiating with the Mennonite for brown eggs over at the farmer's market. You know what I mean? Or beefsteak tomatoes, something like that. Pound of bacon, something like that. That's what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And I know in a few short hours, we're going to combine those two things. And those mindsets. And,
we're going to have an incredible meal.
We're going to have a good meal, and we're going to have a good conversation. But anyway, so I guess my point is I often wonder, I often wonder with like this music thing, and talking to Jeremy, and we were like talking a lot about his path starting to play. He said he was playing bars at 9 years old, and then, all the way up through, gets a huge record deal with the Breaking Benjamin guys. That goes south, comes home, teaches, assistant marching band director, does that, still plays gigs, does sessions with us, and it all kind of just, you carry all this stuff with you. You know what I mean? But I also sense that an underlying theme probably with us was, there's this sense of this foundation. You know what I mean? There's this foundation of
like communal kind of thing.
Well,
or in terms.
I think in terms of before we started recording, you're talking about Billy Joel, and you're talking about screwed up upbringing. He's from Long Island, right? Basically,
Long Island,
or John Mellencamp, he's from Indiana. Bruce Springsteen, Freehold, New Jersey. Yeah. You know what I mean? And there's all sorts of like growing up in that environment, and they've kind of really, in a way, kind of took that environment and blew it up. Right. And to this day, it's rooted in that. You know what I mean? If you're Bruce Springsteen, despite, all the other things that he has become, along the way, it's still rooted in that sort of rock and roll soul band foundation, bar band, shore band foundation. To this day, that is the show.
Because it has the most connection, it's the most truth.
To him.
To him. And yeah.
And to this day, that works.
Yep.
Right? Billy Joel, just a sponge. Yep. Long Island, knows how to play. I have not seen that documentary yet. The Billy Joel one, which I'm a huge fan. I have not seen it yet. And even you watch like the Get Back special with the Beatles, and they're, on their free time, not their free time, but between takes, they're jamming Chuck Berry songs and all that, because it was all, this post World War II kids, playing bars and listening to American R&B and blues, and that was where it came from, Chess Records and all that kind of stuff. And it was all really rooted, but like there was a limit to it. It was like, well, okay, what do your friends have available to listen to?
Right on.
Right
on. So your world was based kind of generally in this area.
In the topography of where you were.
Right.
You're from Liverpool. You're in this little port town in England.
And you have this view, you have this lens into culture. Right on. That is the kind of however it got exported, the biggest thing, probably mostly, or
sure. But I mean, so what happens? What happens 20 years from now? How does it work 20 years from now when everybody that's out there making music, or 50 years from now, everybody that's out there making music started with a limitless situation?
Correct. Started with a limitless, yes. Correct.
They started with
everything is available. Everything's available. Help with anything. Help with pulling anything together, arranging any instruments, any personnel, anything.
And it's not rooted in a tradition, or it's not like, I know, my wife and I talked about that. She was saying, there are things, I don't like. Basically, not getting long-winded, but basically she was saying, I do like tradition. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, but that's a brainstem thing.
Yeah.
That's why people have some disconnect, because they're kind of really, not unlike myself, reaching for something that is unnatural for your where it should settle with your abilities and communication and all the things that you are.
Right.
And so, those things are paramount to survival and communities, and all those things, the traditional things.
Right.
Sorry, tangent, but yes.
Do you think though, I mean, I would say especially, I'm just wondering how much, I know people that I would consider in their 20s, by and large, and it's not a blanket statement, a lot more of them, let's let me phrase it in a musical sense. I think if you brought in, not trying to make a blanket statement or a generalized statement, but if you brought in 10 interns or whoever that were interested in this, interested in recording, interested in recording, making music.
Yeah.
I would think 8 to 9 out of the 10 of those would be more interested in a new piece of software than they would be how to arrange horns to make it sound like a Stax record.
Okay. Are you trying to open a portal for me?
Go ahead.
Trying to open?
No, yes, I'm opening.
Really?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh. That's my question.
Oh, okay. Well, don't get me started. Because,
don't get me started.
No, because I have had experiences where, for instance, you're trying to talk about in your mind, for instance, if I was teaching classes, and I am not, I'm not an educator. This is at the college level.
Well, you did this, yeah.
I did this for I did this for like 11 years.
Yeah.
And it's difficult because as somebody who just wants to make things work and as a creator, to step through the tiny micro things about what we would kind of naturally understand, just kind of breathing, walking into a space, knowing how to address people, knowing the instruments, knowing the wires, knowing the things, like knowing the culture of the whole thing. It's a complicated little tool, and it is a little tool.
Yeah,
it is. It's this tiny little thing that, like right now, very like Jack Antonoff, is married to a rock star actor, Margot Qualley, and they're a power couple. And his studio is the 4th floor of Record Plant or something in New York, and it's a beautiful kitschy thing. It's all his, and that whole translation of what something means at the core level in the story, writing the story down and what it becomes, that thing ends up being everything about the original story, but it ends up being this tiny little microcosm in the overall story of what the thing became. And that begets all the problems, like you have to be on tour. Like Billy Joel's a great example. He's like, he kind of like came out of a bad management thing, and he's like, I literally just have to go to work. I got to go to work. And
didn't he have like his brother managing him or something? Some
his
relative?
Brother-in-law. And it was a terrible thing. And like they would, like he and Christy Brinkley would be like driving up the coast in Maine. They would stop at a place and they're like, "Oh, you guys have the place, that big place up on the cliff." And they're like, "No, like, what are you talking about?" They did. Like, he bought it.
Oh, wow. Really?
He had no idea. This happened all over the country.
Wow.
And
maybe Billy will come on the podcast. We can talk about that.
Oh, and you know what? Like, but
I'll call him.
But quick, no, get him on the horn, mister. Get him on the horn. Yeah. But that kind of that level of he had the level of not Gen X. What's Billy Joel like?
He's a boomer, right? I mean, Billy would be considered a boomer.
He's a boomer with Gen X tendencies.
Sure. He's definitely not a Gen X.
Where he was just like, nope, never telling me what to do, which can be charming and can be terrible.
Sure.
In his case, it's mostly charming because he is so wickedly and wildly and beautifully talented with the storytelling. But man, that bit about actually doing things at a ground level is a different conversation these days.
Right. So you're just basically, I'm just talking about, I guess I'm talking about roots and if they matter. Or certainly, I don't believe that they don't matter. I believe they do. But
where do you think that feel is going to go?
Where's that going?
I think I have a, and I'm an optimist. However, it's based on listening to people talk about the tendencies of the AI future, which is what we're talking about, which ends up being a lot of democratizing things.
Sure.
And a lot of the things that are going to be happening with kind of like job displacement or all these different kinds of things that are not human emotion and craft creator-based things that are just going to be replaced. Like a CEO of Morgan Chase can be replaced today.
Sure.
Like right now. Mm-hmm. And everybody knows this. And so all the VPs and the whole stack. So what that's a different conversation. But what it means,
Not really. I mean, that's okay.
But what it means in reality is that there are millions and millions of people that will need things to do.
Sure.
That's just the long and short of it. They're going to need things to do. And those things are going to include a lot of human things. You're going to see a lot of corporate, like Applebee type of level or bigger, much bigger level of involvement with making clubs and experiences that can have all kinds of different things, but it's going to be human-based and live music, and it's going to be the best technology because there's no cost that's going to matter.
Sure.
This is not a pie in the sky thing, and I think it goes to your original idea of like, what does it mean culturally? Well, what it means culturally is I think we're going to see a renaissance of, we're already seeing it with young people in rock bands and young musicians in rock bands and learning everything from the Beatles to System of a Down.
Yeah.
And they're all over the internet and they understand it. And better yet, they understand the lyric, they understand the intentionality, they understand the culture of what the song came from.
Sure.
Ellen, the Armenian bass player, who is, a young person doing Toxicity.
Yeah.
So that means that those things are going to be valued, very much in the near future, and actually moving along. But to your point, I think that that the human definition is going to be amplified. I think the things that we value are going to be amplified. That association with like in the 70s when you had like you were a kid and somebody had a record that you understood or a record you didn't know, and like you wanted to make a new friend because they had that record. That's that feeling, that connection of this cultural thing, and it's cultural because it's human and spiritual and blah 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 blah. Those things are going to be amplified. And I think that's good. I think it's good news because that's the only thing that is left. Any kind of accounting and managing and CIOing and marketing and all the things, like no one cares. It's gone.
Yeah.
Let's assume it's gone right now because it is. The only reason it's not gone this second is because it takes a minute for society, number one, and number two, we don't have enough quite little box atomic energy makers. And that's going to be solved in 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
So, this is your point. The humanity, the storytelling, the actual things and experiences, and you can get into whatever you want about your life and your past lives, your parents' lives, your children's lives. All these wonderful stories that are connected to you are going to be amplified. Because an AI that starts to kind of self-realize and starts to self-manage doesn't have any kind of anecdotal, personal human stories. But it's going to manage the earth really well.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. So
it's verifiable, the conversation.
I mean, obviously, I understand, from arts and entertainment to finance to marketing to medicine to everything is going to there's obviously that's going to be a fast turnover.
Disrupted
fast,
real quickly and a quick yep.
I understand all that. I guess my question is if I'm an individual and I'm a young boy or something and I've been dropped into this thing, you know what I mean? What's underneath me? You know what I mean?
Oh, the new experiences.
Oh no, the old ones.
Oh, the old ones. Oh.
You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, when
I think it's going to be alive and well.
But I mean, you know, like if everything is easy, you know what I mean?
Nothing is important because nothing is hard. Yeah. So if nothing is hard, that's an issue, obviously, because it doesn't define any paths.
Yeah.
It's a real issue. So that's a real issue. So you can't pick a culture based on you have no choices, or you pick a culture based on circumstances or whatever.
Well, but, you know, like this is something like if you say something like, okay, I want to be an Eagle Scout, and you go along, well, you have to know how to, you know, make a fire or something. Why should I worry about making a fire? I have a lighter.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know,
yeah,
like,
I have a lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. Like, well, you have to know how to pitch a tent. Why should I have to do that? I can just go, boom, because, you know what I mean?
Tent,
you know what I mean? Well,
I tent.
I tent, yeah, and up it comes. And he says, well, you have to go out and, you know, you got to provide for yourself. You know, you got to go out there and fish and hunt and stuff. Why should I do that? DoorDash. Oh, they'll bring it to the woods. I'll just give them my coordinates. You know what I mean? Yeah. The little drone comes down. Yeah. May the odds ever be in your favor kind of thing. You know, like that kind of shit. So it's like
1,000%.
You know, so
why?
So if I'm a young person, I'm
why?
like, so my person, and the point is like, okay, the journey of the struggle, and like, okay, here's where I came from. I came from these parents. I came from these parents, and these parents came from this.
Yeah.
And this is part of who I was and where I came from. And there's a certain amount of, you know, origin stories and folklore and all these things that come from these people.
And the whole,
if I'm sitting, but you know, if I'm a young kid and everything's easy and everything's right in front of me, then, you know, I can say this in context of music, certainly, you know, like, but like, where do I find, you know, where do I find myself? Where do I find my thing? You know what I mean? Like in my eyes, I mean, part of like where you came from and is part of who you become. You know, go be it good or bad. You know, but it's kind of like, well, but if you have, you know, the wise old grandfather that's saying, well, you know, this is what we had to do to get here, and this is what we had to do this, and this is how we did it, and this is why we did it this way, and this is all we had. You know what I mean? And you say, well, that's bullshit, Grandpa. That doesn't apply anymore. You know what I mean? That's all these things are easy now. You know what I mean? So that's the kind of stuff that, you know what I mean? It's like, so I'm like wondering what's underneath where it goes. And I mean, I'm not saying, like you say, people care about traditions. They certainly care about things that happened 50 years ago, but it's kind of, I just hope they understand. I think they understand it. You know,
I think that what's going to happen is that we start democratizing the idea of we understand there's no race. There's
of course.
There's like blah blah blah. Like if you start understanding like those things, but if you start understanding the idea that there's no exact lineage and that all the lineage is together, and that you have to make choices about understanding what that lineage is. Yeah. I think if you start like democratizing those experiences, you're going to, and you don't want to end up with vanilla. We want artistic choices based on experience.
Right. You want people that are going to do that.
And so like, I think that those things will continue and actually be amplified and be understood artistically on a human level like nothing before, because they will have a Neil Young and a Jimi Hendrix and a Bad Bunny all in the same mix, and they will understand where they intersect, and it will be new things that will that's kind of the long and short of it. It's going to be an amalgamation of that and what their personal experience is. But I don't know, were you born in a pod of like, I don't know who knows what's going to happen. But quite frankly, but those DNA cultural things I think are going to be hard to evolve out of for another 100,000 years.
Yeah, sure.
So like in the short term, I think all those things are super relevant for exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Of all the episodes I've done, you know, this one is the most sort of unfocused, you know what I mean?
And strange. And
yeah, but it's great. This is good. I hope people can follow it because it makes sense to me. You know what I mean? I think a lot of, I mean, just, how, I mean, I guess that I was always, I've always said, people are, whether it be your music or whatever you're doing, you've always been kind of more defined by your limitations than your abilities.
Great. And that's the best.
And part of your limitation, big part of your limitation is your environment and how you overcome your environment.
Yep.
Or how you find your place within your environment.
Yep.
But, and that's what makes, we talked about that, with, Monet and he had cataracts. So he started painting, these muted colors and, you know what I mean? And visual art,
and sonically it's no different. The influences but sonically, I mean, and this is
with the piano, like Leon Russell, like had a weak, I think had a weak right hand, so he played real heavy.
Heavy on.
Because he had a limitation here.
Right.
So that like defined the style. So he got, that was a
perfect example.
You know what I mean? And guys do. I mean, there's a million examples of how they took what they. I mean, Jeff Healey played over the top of the guitar. There's like the guys that just did all these different things that were, based on their limitations and kind of brought it out there, or based on, they can be self-imposed limitations, or they can be cultural limitations, or they can be limitations of perspective. But, when all the information is available to all of everybody all the time, I think those kind of things still happen.
I think that is probably one of the most important conversations that people could have moving forward, because it's like, where do you find people's experiences, and then what does that say? And I don't think it necessarily is going to ever go away. Mm-hmm. It's just going to evolve into like weirdly different kind of experiences with the same hopes and dreams and terrors of all art.
Yeah.
And I think that it will be that. It's not going to be a clean utopian transition of technology. It's going to be quite dystopian, actually. And a lot of people are going to be displaced. And I think that the things that keep people going. People want love and connection. They basically, they just could define it as love, but your family, your immediate environment, and then like if you're defensively, your tribe.
Sure.
And so that kind of thing is going to be more defined in weird ways, and but artistically, I think that all those things still apply. They still apply. They're just gonna bubble up in different ways or something, Mm-hmm. And musicians will like you just always adapt.
Right.
So you express in different ways. And
there is not. Yeah. I just think like I wonder, and I wasn't, when I say like your limitations or your grounding or your history or whatever the case may be, or where you came from and how you're working that into what you do. It's not like, to me, if you're going outside that, I'm not like. I'll clarify. I'm not saying I'm not putting it in a cultural appropriation sort of way. Like, okay, well, if you're not Mexican, you can't make a burrito. I mean, or it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no, I'm.
There's no.
I mean, that's what cultural appropriation becomes. Sometimes
there was no pretense considered with any. Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody's drawing from all sorts of.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, the Beatles drawing from American, blues. They're just from Muddy Waters and Chuck Berry.
Yes.
And Chess Records and Rolling Stones as well, and all that whole British invasion. Then they bring it over, and then that influences another generation. So like everybody's kind of got this melting pot of things that they're drawing out of, which I'm absolutely for.
Yes.
But I think sometimes if you say I saw this interview with Matt Damon the other day, and he said something. It was funny to hear him say it because I hadn't thought of it, and it's so obvious, you know, because I'm in my living is in music, so I think all the time about, well, hell, you know, now, you know, we make records and we put them out there in streaming services, and we do content, and we put out word and whatever we do, and we keep, you know, and then there's algorithms and there's, you know, content, and you're keeping people and the attention spans are really, really short, and you know, and some things rise and some things just kind of go up so far and don't rise, and you know, but it's a different world. You don't sell physical product. You know, there's vinyl, T-shirts, you know, merchandise, things like that. So a lot of it has went from the music business to the musician business, and I've said that before. You know, it's a service, kind of more of a service than a retail business, except for merchandise and all the stickers and all that kind of stuff. So that's a change. That is a change. But he was saying, you know, it used to be when you put out a movie, when you would put out a film, you know, you didn't have to make all your money at the box office.
Right on.
Because you knew it's coming out on VHS. It's coming out on DVD.
Yep. We have a couple of deals.
We got a couple of deals. There's back-end things that are coming on the back end. Yep. And there's all this physical product that's going to be worth who knows how much.
Right on.
You know, and how many things that you love
and so
bombed in the theaters. You know,
but on the actuarial table, it's like, well, we have a life for this thing.
Yeah, we have a life, but now that doesn't exist. So okay, so then if you're going to do something, you know, whatever type of maybe left of center film about something left of center or right of center,
right on.
Or you know, something, I'm not even going to give an example. There's millions of them of something you might want to do a movie about. That becomes more of a gamble,
right? Because
you're like, okay, so how do I roll this out so everybody goes the first couple weeks?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In order to survive,
so then if you're going to make that movie or you're going to make that record, you know, you only can put so much into it,
right?
You know, because there is no back end. There is no physical product on the back end.
Yeah, I think it's all an evolving story. I think the problem right now is that we're just seeing the very beginning of it turning on, and it sounds to me like social media sounds to me like a Model T engine. Like you can hear the cylinders. Yeah, you know, and that's not gonna be the case for very long, and you know, what's gonna be available for people is much more of a kind of a soaking of an area where you can be. There are, you know, moving forward, there are going to be more venues and more places that can be monetized for artistic expression. There will be. You know, it's going to be a kind of a slow thing, and then it's going to start happening. Yeah, this is going to be 10 years. But that said, these things are monumentally important. The stories, the telling of the stories, the perspective of the stories, all that kind of stuff. It's just really, really important. I mean, I don't want to ever sound like a content person, because I am not in the business of managing, purveying, buying, doing anything with content. I play the bass. I would like to really, if I could just go to my grave and they said he played the bass. He played the bass. Yeah. That's truth. And I did. And so I honestly, I don't want to overindulge into areas that were never my nature, even though I have to understand the technology stuff for work. Yeah. The most important thing is definitely the connection and the story, and that thing is always at a premium. It's always difficult. And I don't know where your podcast, what subject this was. Yeah. To come back around to the thing is always important and it's always difficult. It's difficult now. We have SNL cast member people, Seth Meyers, we have Kimmel, we got Fallon, we have this whole professional, enormous late night thing happening, that there are writers and writers and writers, and it's difficult to do that at a certain level. It's very hard to do that. We know this as you know this more than anybody as a songwriter. I mean, in my camp as a songwriter, how difficult it is to make something that has a pocket, like an emotional pocket, that has a center, that has something that comes back around, that's a little bit funny, that has a turn, that has like whatever. And it mostly happens on accident, but you have to have muscle memory to go through those iterative things to make a song happen. And most people don't have those muscles, just like golf. You know, our buddy Chad's playing golf right now.
Yeah.
And he's had the greatest golf of his life this year, our buddy Chad.
How come? Why? What is
He was
facilitating?
in the spring. He was just a monster. And right now, today, this is just the beginning of August, 2025.
Yeah.
And he is playing the worst golf of his life. His body froze up, his shoulder froze up, and this one's doing a thing, and he can't. And he's all over the place, and he's triple bogeying. It's hilarious, only because it is a struggle. You know, it is a struggle. And that's why musicians are hilarious with each other.
Yeah.
You know, because it is a struggle to try to get something that's good. And I don't even know where this
90%. Well, no, the 99% of everything is garbage. You know, that's the way it is.
That's the way it is. And you know, as Chad would say, I mean, there you go. You're mostly garbage. Quite frankly,
mostly nonsense.
Yeah, mostly nonsense.
Yeah. I guess I've just been I've been thinking a lot about it. You know. You're just thinking about kind of foundationally, like, I mean, Brian Eno once had a famous quote I brought up lots of times, not in a podcast, I don't think, but he said, basically, he thought that in the future, artists like the sonic bit, this was way before social media. He said this.
Anything digital or anything like that.
Yeah, anything like that. He said, in the future, I think that the sonic bit will be like the album. You know, I mean, what the hell did the Guess Who look like? Nobody knows. You know, nobody knew what, the Grassroots, Three Dog Night, all these bands of the 70s. Nobody knew what they looked like. Mm-hmm. They couldn't pick them out. They could walk down any street.
That was the best part.
Yeah, and it was about the music. You know, it was just about the music and the songs. And, so it's obviously very different now. But he was saying, he thought that as time went on, music would be the sonic bit, the stuff that comes out of the speakers, would be a very small part of it. Mm-hmm. And he, as a producer of music, is really just like a context maker. That was the whole thing of like, I make context. I create environments that you can hear with your ears to complement this vision that I have. And
if you understand what the goal is.
Yeah. So, but at the end of it, if you back up, somebody's got to have that vision.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm going. Like, somebody's got to have that vision. Like, I saw this interview with Quentin Tarantino, and he was saying, well, first of all, I have to have a vision. I don't have to know how to sew. I can tell the costume designers what I want. And then they can make some things, and I can say, yeah, that's good, or yeah, that needs to be a little bit more of this.
He's going to look through the camera. He's going to defer to his director,
or whatever. Whoever his director is.
He's going to defer to the casting person to say that.
Yeah, I don't. He said, I don't understand engineering. I don't have to build the sets.
No.
I don't have to do that. All I have to do is know what I want it to be.
Yeah.
So then my whole point was, it will be interesting to see as time goes on, and the next 20 years from now, Tarantino shows up, that was coming from this Limitless thing. Mm-hmm. Like what kind of, I guess maybe they'll just stumble into these little contexts that maybe, what should I say, primally catch their fancy. and they can kind of buffet style cherry pick all these things and make it into their own vibe. You know, it won't really come from their.
Oh, of course.
It won't come from their families or their upbringing or their cultural or their
so
grandparents.
there's going to be actually mostly that. Just as most people, you know, it's like a lot of people drink soda. A lot of people just take, you know, you take what comes down the pipe a lot.
Yeah.
And so because you don't have time or bandwidth and you're just doing your thing.
You're not really thinking in terms of thinking is in terms of if this is something that's true to
a lot. There are many people that don't have the bandwidth to discern why I should not be drinking, you know, even Pepsi, or I should not be doing this, or I should. You don't have the bandwidth. It has nothing to do with context or criticism at all. It has to do with, well, it does have everything to do with context, where they are and what they can manage. So like, it's going to actually.
Well, but I mean, from an art standpoint or a music standpoint, you know, if all these people don't have the bandwidth, then if there's somebody over here that needs to make this enormous investment of time, resources, money, blah, 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 to create this thing, they're going to have to be thinking of something that's on the bandwidth of these enormous groups of people that don't have much bandwidth.
They won't. No, they won't. No,
if they're going to spend, you know,
they won't because you'll be able to spend that time. I mean, it's very short. This is August 2025. You know, universal basic income has started. In fact, this week there was just some sort of like $600 credit for X. And I don't want to like get into the rabbit hole with that kind of stuff, but
sure.
But people, if you decide that you want to create and you have some perspective of it, you're going to be able to do it because that's all. Honestly, that's all there's going to be.
That's all there's going to be to do.
In 20 years, there's going to be a very different social structure.
Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
That I think we sort of agree with all this. I don't think I'm disagreeing.
I just want to I don't want to diminish. I don't want to amplify any kind of fears in terms of creation and what that means. You know, it's almost like I feel like the most privileged timeline, like our this Gen X thing. You and I were born in 1965, and it is such a privilege to like feel what the 70s were, know as young adults what the 80s were, have the 90s with all these bands and feeling that whole thing, and then this weirdness of the turn of this technology thing that's disruptive it's really like a freaking privilege. Because we understand it in the context of we know how to physically do things.
Yeah,
we're like a hyperpower, a superpower greatest generation. The greatest generation was like, look, kids, you have no idea what we went through.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, right.
And we sacrificed everything for the idea of this country.
Sure.
That's the context of what we would say the greatest generation. Gen X is like, look, you guys, you have no idea what we know.
Yeah.
You have no idea what we've gone through. We didn't go to the military. A lot of us. You know, but we understand what it takes for all culture. And let's just take musicians. The physical gigging, you know, the 70s Dodge van, the blah, 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 all these things that all of our friends know about to do on a physical level, that thing is going to persist.
Sure.
because there's no. I think there's like I want to say it's like a mental illness kind of thing. You work your. It is like you work your shit out. You work your shit out in your music, and when you have a band, it's a little football team.
Sure.
You know, and our band was we at least always had a football team.
Sure.
Did I like the wide receiver every day? No.
No. Okay. The wide receiver.
But I was the punter.
Yeah.
You know. I don't know.
Just came in. Just came in when things had already.
Who was the wide receiver?
You came in when
band?
things have already went bad. Yeah. Like you never. The punter never gets to like come in when things are good. You know, it's like things just went wrong.
I don't even know who the wide receiver is.
It's like the punter comes in when it's like, I give up. You know, that's
me. That's me, Bret. That's me.
No,
I give up.
It's not worth it. Screw it. Let's try again tomorrow. That's the punter.
You're not wrong. I think I am the punter. I think I am the punter in this game.
But yeah,
you know what? I don't. What's the okay? Give me some context here.
Okay, I just I think that we're getting towards what I was asking. I guess I was just kind of thinking in terms. I mean, I said I started with, you know, you're down here in Central PA and you're seeing, you know, a decent amount of tech around, and there's a lot of technology here and things going on here that are technological. And then you go to the store, or you go to farmer's market or something, there's all these Mennonites around or the Amish, you know what I mean? So there's like these really age-old, time-honored traditions that are still going on side by side. Universities, you know, that are incredibly, you know, tech savvy and pushing and you know, you're buying your produce and and everything from these very traditional people that have square readers now. You know, yes. and so it's like kind of like, how is all this stuff going to be used on the musical side to sort of retain a little bit? You know what I mean?
That's a great question.
You know, like, so, or is it going to be retained, or is it just going to be, it's just going to be scattered all over the place?
No, I think that actually the real bit of like a Hendrix, like a Chuck Berry, an Ella Fitzgerald, a Jimi Hendrix. I think all these Carole King as like songwriter, like Carole King. Like I think the reality of what that even deeper than we would ever, and that our generation could ever know, I think is going to be preserved.
Yeah.
And so in some ways the choices are limited by default because of history and what has actually happened. And even if you say, you know, well, AI is going to run the world, and it knows all the things. Well, there were limited amount of events and people and things that happened, and the defining ones are X. And so I believe that human culture, even more so, will be amplified, not in the loving way of like having a barbecue and a family gathering and a Tedeschi Trucks band that has there's going to be more Tedeschi Trucks bands.
Yeah,
there's going to be 30 Tedeschi Trucks bands. Yeah, so like this kind of thing is like I think it's uncomfortable because I think it's uncomfortable for normal people of our age to think about something that is translated in just a flat screen or even digitally in our brains or anything, that was the culture, as opposed to, you know, I went out and I got lost in the woods and my grandfather found me. Yeah, you know, kind of culture.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, I think it's the most relevant thing you could talk about, like moving forward for musicians, because I mean, we think it's the coolest art form.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and you just, I don't know, you know, you wonder, you know, you wonder where it's going. You wonder, I wonder if it all ends out being kind of maybe quaint or something, you know what I mean? In the context of
the era will be so quaint.
You know what I mean? I mean, when this perspective and this, you know, just kind of balloons out, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? And is it just kind of like, is it just like putting Art Deco in your house? You know what I mean? Or something, if you're drawing from those things.
1,000%.
You know what I mean?
Like, for instance,
and then that's out. So then you move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? Whereas more of, whatever, like bluegrass or something, is generational. You know what I mean? It just father to son to, grandfather to father to father, to son.
Yeah.
And on and on and on. So like you wonder if where all this stuff that, had to our generation have seemed very important over time or very moving. Certainly, moving, that you got a lot out of it. You wonder if it ultimately ends up being sort of quaint.
I think it does. I think it does in a way, but I don't think it does. I think the fear of that happening is no different than the fear of people in the 60s doing much more kind of radio happy songs, kind of in a lane of that production that was successful to sell products, coming into the 70s with some weird, like, heavy metal started and blah, 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 and Led Zeppelin and Ziggy Stardust and all this stuff. Like, I don't think it's, I think that all of the tenets of those cool things, again, are going to be found and amplified.
Okay.
I think they're going to be found and amplified, like Mama Thorne, she played in SG, Big Mama Thorne.
Thornton.
Thornton.
Yeah.
Thornton? I am so sorry.
Yeah. No,
can we do it lower? Paul's an idiot. That thing translating itself right into Alabama Shakes.
Sure.
Into Britney.
Yeah.
Almost reincarnated, almost in the exact same joy of expression. And Brittany Howard, for me, is like the most overcoming, the most adept at struggle songs based in all the way back blues and everything in a modern context, in this context, coming from her whole story. I think that is going to be amplified, those things. And so, man, I think I think our generation is probably gonna be like, having a funeral for our way of life.
Sure. Yeah.
In some ways, but also people that come in that have no idea what the former culture is, but they find new things compelling. It's just like dying and coming back, and we're, grind away. The most important tenets of all the things, songwriting, storytelling, the filter of how you make something really cool with the community, that will never go away. It can't go away, because that's just a gathered human experience until we have AGI 2535.
Yeah.
I don't know. Look,
I think, basically what we're saying is, to me, like, all this stuff is like, if you're old and curmudgeon-y, and I try not to be, I try to be open to, pretty much, that's one good thing about being a studio guy or a producer or an engineer or something, is you're working with all these people that don't think like you.
Right.
And and that's cool. That's something that if you're an artist your whole life, maybe you would work, every 3 years or every couple of years, you're working with producers, that don't think like you.
Right.
And you get something new out of those guys.
Right.
But it's not like every day somebody's coming in and they don't think like you. They go about it completely differently.
Yep.
Their music, the way they create it, their lives, some of them are way less precious about things that you're really precious about.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're way more precious about something that you don't give a shit. You're just like, why are you worried about this? Yeah. So I think in the end, probably everything's fine. So everything's going to be fine. It's just going to be different, and you don't want to be curmudgeon because people don't have the right intentions, or they don't have the right history, or they don't I guess the point is that it doesn't matter how they come about it or how do they get to the right place, as long as they get there, and maybe they don't know how to repair a buggy, but they know how to drive a car, so,
Right on.
And maybe they don't know that, railroad tracks are the same width as chariot wheels,
Right.
but they know how to get the train from Philly to Boston.
Right.
So
It's kind of like that.
you know what I mean, in a musical sense, and it all kind of, that's life. It all works out.
It does. And in a musical sense, I think that it gets preserved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. There we go.
Yeah, dude.
Excellent.
This podcast was produced by Stone State Entertainment.